Hello and welcome back. As always, my name is Laser and today we are going to talk about the latest hero added to the Heroes of the Storm roster, namely Lieutenant Morales. Before we get started, please keep in mind that the information presented in this video is accurate at the time of publishing. Lieutenant Morales represents the medic unit from the Terran forces in the Starcraft universe and plays the support role in Heroes of the Storm. So why don't we start off with her basic abilities. Her first basic ability is Healing Beam, which is a channeled ability that will sustain heal a single target for the duration of the channel, draining mana only if it heals the selected target, meaning that if you maintain your beam on a full HP target, no mana will be consumed. This ability can be further augmented to offer a shield if the target is full on HP through the level 4 talent Bioshield. As stated, Bioshield will only offer its bonus to full HP targets, which means no actual mana will be consumed. The shield amount will stack up the longer you channel with a maximum of 5 stacks. It's important to note that the shield will only be active while you channel Healing Beam on your target. If the channel is interrupted, the shield will disappear. This talent is useful before an actual team fight. You can keep it active either on your engager to mitigate some potential initial damage, or you can keep it active on a high value damage dealer to discourage the enemy team from focusing on that specific target. There are other scenarios where this talent is useful, however it loses all its value in an actual team fight. On level 7, Irradiate is another way you can modify your Healing Beam. It will offer a burning rage-like effect to the target of your channel. Obviously, this is ideally kept on a melee that will be in the middle of a fight. A few examples would be Kerrigan, Artanis, Illidan, etc. Level 13 gives us 3 options to further modify our Healing Beam. The first of which, Intensive Care, will increase the healing amount by 25% after 3 seconds of continuous channel. If you can't keep your targets alive, then this might be a viable option. However, because the actual increase happens only after 3 seconds of channeling, it will not help with burst damage unless you already had the beam active a few seconds before the actual burst. Couples Therapy is the only way you can actively heal yourself. While channeling Healing Beam, you are healed for 25% of the healing amount at an additional mana cost. You may or may not need this talent depending mostly on the team compositions. If the opposing team is managing to reach and focus you, then you might want to pick this up. A dead healer heals no one, unless it's Uta. And finally, Preemptive Care gives a form of imposing presence to the target of your channel. This one, however, clearly specifies that the actual auto attack slow duration is for 2.5 seconds, even if it's only for 25%. It goes without saying that this talent is powerful against auto attack heroes such as Raynor, and it can be what you need to keep your fragile damage dealers alive. Let's move on to her W, Safeguard, which is an instant cast targeted ability on a single friendly target. It will mitigate 25% of incoming damage for 3 seconds, and unlike Healing Beam, it can be self-cast. Level 1 brings 3 options for augmenting Safeguard. First one being Prolonged Safeguard, which increases the duration by 1 second. Very useful against sustained damage comps, especially when coupled with Shield Sequencer, which gives you a free additional Safeguard at level 13. Feedback Loop will refund most of Safeguard's mana cost when it expires. This will solve your early game mana hunger, but it becomes less useful mid-late game, making it ideal for battlegrounds on which the early game is crucial to the outcome of the match. Battlegrounds such as Battlefield of Eternity, Haunted Mines, and maybe even Infernal Shrines. Trauma Trigger will give you an untalented Safeguard if you take damage while below 50% health. This effect having a 20-second cooldown. This will increase your survivability and maintains its usefulness throughout the course of the game. You will have to decide at level 1 if you think the enemy team will try to focus you down and if they can actually do that. A quick look at the 2 comps should give you the answer you need. Level 16 brings us the 2 final options for modifying Safeguard, starting with Shield Sequencer. This will allow you to cast the second Safeguard at no mana cost within 3 seconds of the initial Safeguard cast. The Sequencer is a powerful tool and will allow you to mitigate damage on 2 targets in rapid succession, so you can have it active on your engager and on a vulnerable damage dealer at the same time, making it excellent in team fights large or small. And the final option is Inoculation, which will increase the mitigation to 50% for the first 1.5 seconds of Safeguard's duration, so you get minus 50% damage taken for the first 1.5 seconds and the normal minus 25% for the rest of the duration. This is very useful when trying to mitigate high burst damage such as Zertul's combo or Kel'Thuz's Pyroblast. If the enemy team has more than 1 burst damage dealer, then you should think about picking up Inoculation. Displacement Grenade is a skill shot that explodes on the first enemy hit, dealing damage and knocking enemies away. It is important to note that the grenade will also explode if it runs out of range before coming in contact with an enemy unit or structure. The travel speed of the skill shot is very low and the actual explosion radius is small, making this skill shot difficult to execute correctly. It is easy to directly knock enemies away, the hard part comes in while chasing. It is possible to use the grenade while chasing to knock enemies into a more favorable position for your team. This, however, requires great precision and timing, as you want to aim your grenade to explode in front of the enemy you are chasing, and the actual explosion to knock them more towards your team. First option to further augment this ability comes at level 4, where we can pick up Infused Grenade, which will refund the skill shot's mana cost only if it comes in contact with an enemy hero. The regained mana is useful early game, but it loses some of its potency middle to late game when mana should no longer be a concern. And it's also worth remembering how easy the skill shot can be missed, rendering the talent very iffy. Upgraded Ballistics is another option at level 4, and this one will increase the actual travel speed of the grenade by 50%, and enemies directly impacted will take 33% more damage. This is one of the most useful upgrades to Displacement Grenade, mostly because of the actual movement speed increase, which will make the skill shot easier to land and harder to dodge at the same time. The additional damage is always good, but keep in mind that it only applies to directly impacted enemies. At level 7 we find the Clear talent, which will increase the grenade's actual explosion radius by 33%, and it will also knock enemies further. Again, a very useful augmentation to the Medic's grenade. This will allow us to affect more enemies, and if we couple this with the System Shock talent, then we can apply a considerable CC to the entire enemy team in the right circumstances. The increased knockaway distance will be very effective against melee assassins when trying to keep them off your valuable damage dealers and or yourself. It can also come in useful when trying to knock your opponents into a favorable position for your own team, such as an ATC Mosh Pit, Void Prison or other such scenarios. The final two options for Displacement Grenade come at level 13, the first one being System Shock. This one will apply a 50% slow to all enemies affected by the explosion, which will decay over the 4-second duration. A crowd control of this potential will always help out, especially against melee assassins, but it should only be picked up if your own team actually needs the extra CC, and by level 13 this should be apparent to you. Our final option is Second Opinion, which brings a 2-second decrease in cooldown, and it also offers a second grenade charge. This will allow us to cast 2 grenades in rapid succession, and just like in the case of System Shock, you will need to figure out what real benefit your team will draw from this talent. Take into consideration the actual team setups and how did teamfights progress up until that point. More specifically, try to look at what went right, what went wrong, and figure out how beneficial another grenade would be. Moving on to her trait, Caduceus Reactor will regenerate 3% of your maximum health every second after not taking damage for 4 seconds. The medic's place is in the back line, and as long as you can keep focus off yourself with the help of the allied team, your trait will offer you all the health needed to remain in a fight and support your allies. The only possible upgrade to Caduceus Reactor comes at level 20. 2.0 will offer mana regeneration and a stacking shield for as long as your trait is active. This greatly increases your sustain and survivability, but it relies on the trait being active, which can prove difficult depending on the situation at hand. Now let's go through the remaining talent options for our medic. Scouting Drone at level 1 can provide your team with a bit of extra vision, which can prove vital in securing or defending objectives and in preventing unwanted gank attempts. This non-hero specific talent is, like always, a judgment call, and it will depend on the team setups and the battleground you are on. At level 4 we find the Advanced Block talent, which will periodically reduce the damage received from hero basic attacks by 50%. And unlike the normal block, this one stores up 3 charges instead of 2. Block does little against spell damage dealers, but when confronting auto attack heroes such as Raynor and Illidan, it becomes extremely useful by increasing your survivability. Mule is another non-hero specific talent. This one will repair structures over time. There are a few maps where Mule can offer great results. Examples would be Haunted Mines and Battlefield of Eternity. Cleanse removes all stuns, roots, silences and slows from the target and reduces the duration of their reapplication by 50% for 2 seconds. Currently, this is a very potent talent which can save an ally from dying, or it can allow an initiation to be executed properly. It is mostly a mandatory pick on most supports, but always keep in mind how much and what type of actual crowd control the opposing team possesses, and if your own teammates have countermeasures. Spell Shield is another strong non-hero specific talent. This one is catered to mitigate ability damage and can offer you the extra survivability needed when fighting high spell damage dealers such as Jaina and Kayle. Storm Shield will shield all nearby allies for 20% of their max health for 3 seconds. This talent shines the most in actual team fights and can make a big difference for your allies. You need to be aware of your own positioning within the team and have appropriate timing in order to get the most out of this talent. I saved the best for last, so it's time to talk about heroic abilities. First off, we have Stim Drone, which will grant an ally hero 75% attack speed and 25% movement speed for 10 seconds. This is not an instant cast ability and has about an actual 1 second cast time, so it's important to not get stunned or knocked away while trying to cast it. Obviously, the ideal targets for such an ability are high damage auto attack heroes. To name a few, Illidan, Kerrigan, Butcher and Raynor. The current duration of Stim Drone is very long at 10 seconds and can decide the outcome of a team fight. Just keep in mind that Stim Drone does not offer any protection against CC effects. The ally you buffed with Stim Drone can still be nullified by the opposing team, so keeping a cleanse ready for the buffed target can be a very efficient preemptive measure. The heroic also offers a bit of versatility, as it can be used to save a fleeing ally because of the actual 25% increase in movement speed. The upgrade to Stim Drone, Transfusion, extends the buff duration by 2 seconds and also applies Stim Drone to you. This is used to pair you with the buffed target. While your own auto attacks are nothing spectacular, you will be able to keep the pace with your buffed target, forming a dynamic duo that can potentially shred through enemies. Medivac Dropship is her signature move and a very potent one at that. You can target a location for a Medivac transport. For up to 10 seconds before takeoff, allies can right click to enter the Medivac and cannot exit until the Medivac lands or is destroyed. This is an extremely powerful ability that can decide a game in a couple of minutes due to the very short cooldown. It loses some of its potency on smaller maps such as Haunted Mines and Battlefield of Eternity, but it's invaluable on larger maps because of how easy and fast an entire team can get from one objective to the other. And as we all know, Heroes of the Storm is mostly about map objectives. This can also be used to escape a bad situation, as the Medivac can take a couple of hits before being destroyed. You can use the Medivac in very aggressive maneuvers, such as flying directly on an exposed core or behind an enemy team push, essentially trapping them. The biggest downside to Medivac is that it requires team trust. If your team does not agree on your decision or does not trust you, the Medivac will lose most of its potential. The upgrade to Medivac Medbay will heal all allies around and inside the Medivac, so this can not only deliver your team onto an objective with full health, but it can also be successfully used in a team fight. Allies can choose to stand around your Medivac and get healed up or pop inside to escape the wrath of the enemy team. The Medbay heals all allies, so that means minions as well. The downside being that you will be out of the fight while the Medivac is active, and it can still be damaged down easily if you cannot take off because of the 3-second pre-flight cooldown. One last thing I would like to add, you do get a warning message when a Medivac is spawned, and you can see the destination on the minimap in the form of a ship icon. And that pretty much concludes the technical side of things. Now what will follow are my honest impressions and what do I think about the Medic and how I think it should be played. So let's start off with actual difficulty. To be honest, I think the actual tag of medium which Blizzard puts on there this time is spot on. I don't find the Medic to be too challenging. Now there are a couple of things. The grenade, from my point of view, is one of the hardest skill shots to get right in Heroes of the Storm up until this point. Again, because of the actual possibility of knocking enemies towards your team or in a more favorable position for your team while actually chasing. That is possible, yet very hard to do, and every time I actually get it right, I feel satisfaction out of it, okay? I feel like I did something that was hard, alright, and it actually gave my team a very good advantage. Other than that, other than the actual grenade there, which you can talent to make it easier for you, you need map awareness for the actual medevac. Okay, this is what you need as a player to be a good medevac user, I guess. But other than that, there's nothing much to worry about the medic. I don't find her super challenging, and there are often times when I play the medic and, well, I get a little bit bored. Okay, because there's not much to do except switch your beam from one target to the next. And since I'm on the subject, while you're actually healing with your beam, don't try to stick on a specific target when you got multiple low HPs friendlies. Okay, obviously prioritize the most important one, but try to switch actively between them. Obviously take into account what actual talents you have picked up. Keep in mind that your position is in the backline. Okay, always try to be in the backline. Your auto attacks are negligible. Okay, if it's a question of being in range to do auto attacks and staying safe, always go for the safe part. Okay, again, your auto attacks are negligible. Other than that, when it comes to actual heroic abilities for the actual medic, it's gonna be medevac for the bigger maps. Obviously, the more objective spread maps, such as Sky Temple, such as let's see, Nantumah Spider Queen. I'm a little bit iffy on that map. You can go for both Stim Drone and medevac because, again, you do have a boss on the top lane. Yeah, it's iffy there, but on the rest, Cursed Hollow, definitely go for medevac. Obviously, you gotta take into account your own team composition and so on and so forth. Now, when choosing the talents for the medic, let's just go step by step here and take you through my thought process. I look at level 1, and to be honest, I don't consider the actual feedback loop necessary on the medic. I know there are a lot of people who think differently than me, then that's awesome, that's fine. I don't find the actual mana needed. Okay, you can get mana starved early game, that is true, but as long as you're a little bit smart about how you use and how much you use of your mana and in what conditions, you should be fine without taking it. There are other strong options, and let's not take into account Scouting Drone because this is too case dependent. My actual favorite pick usually is Trauma Trigger. You are very squishy as the medic. You can get focused down very easily. Yes, your grenade does help to get somewhat away from a sticky situation, but for example, you can knock back an Illidan and he can just queue right back to you. Okay, so Trauma Trigger is usually my ideal pick at level 1. I go for Prolonged Safeguard when I consider that the enemy team is built around sustained damage and sustained in general. Okay, I want that extra 1 second duration. At level 4, Bioshield again, like I said, is useful before an actual team fight from my point of view. Other than that, not so much, too iffy. Advanced Block, if I'm facing multiple auto attack heroes on the enemy team, I'm definitely gonna take it. And I'm gonna sidestep a little bit here, guys, I hope you don't mind too much. I feel like I have a bigger actual degree of choice when playing the medics. There are heroes in HotS which, well, they have a very strict meta. For example, Zagara. Okay, just right off the top of my head. I feel like the medic actually has real choice in her talents, and that's not something you meet all too often from my point of view. Again, we're talking about actual competitive builds. So I think the medic is very flexible. You can go for multiple options. You actually have a choice. You actually have to look at the team composition, think about the map, think about your possibilities, and choose your talents. Alright, sorry for that sidestep there. Getting back to level 4, so Advanced Block, obviously when fighting multiple auto attack heroes. Upgraded Ballistics at this tier is my favorite talent because of the actual increase in travel speed of the grenade. I find this to be extremely useful because the stock actual speed of the grenade is, well, pitiful. Okay, it's easy to dodge it, you see it coming a mile away, so I really like that. I've considered knockback very useful for the team. And Infused Grenade, no, I don't see the point of this talent at all. I don't like it at all. Again, if you're not going for upgraded ballistics, that means the actual speed will be the same, and if it hits a hero, no, this talent not at all. It's level 7. Cleanse is probably gonna be mandatory on Morales. Obviously, it's gonna depend on the enemy team and on your own team. Do they actually got means of getting out of CC? How much the CC does the enemy team have? How have engagements gone up until level 7, and so on and so forth. Clear, I like Clear because again it increases the explosion radius, okay, and the knockback. So it's easier for me to get a knockback while chasing, okay, a proper knockback while chasing, not just knock them away from my team. So I like this talent. Irradiate, I have found myself using the most up until this point, especially on something like an Illidan, a Butcher. This is a form of Burning Rage, alright? So this is a form of Burning Rage, and it'll stay active on the target of your Q. You're putting it on a melee, maybe I even put it on an ATC mosh pit, and it worked out supremely nice. Definitely love this talent, but again I believe Cleanse will be the mandatory pick in most cases at this tier. Level 10, Stim Drone and Medivac Dropship, two very different ultimates. Again, that degree of choice I feel on Morales, and which kind of makes me enjoy her, okay? A pretty simple hero from my point of view, but I actually enjoyed my time with Morales. I played like 20 games and I'm still not bored, and that's not very common for me when launching a new hero. Stim Drone, well, it's gonna depend on your team setup. How many auto attack heroes? You got an Illidan, you got a Butcher, you got a Kerrigan, do you have an Abattoir which you can combo with maybe a Bloodlust from Rhaegar? Are you running double supports? Are you not running double supports? And so on and so forth. Stim Drone is usually the go-to heroic for me when I am on a small map. Haunted Mines, Battlefield of Eternity, I don't see the point of Medivac Dropship there, and I just pick up Stim Drone. Now, let's talk about Medivac Dropship. This has to be one of the most powerful abilities in the game at this point. After Zerathul's Void Prism, which I don't know if it's as powerful after the changes. I think it is. I honestly think it is. I mean, the decrease in range, it matters, but not that much. Now, the Medivac is practically the first actual team-wide teleporter we get, more or less. It comes with ifs and maybes, yes, that is correct, but I believe it to be one of the strongest abilities in the game. What do you need? Like I said, to actually use this correctly, you need awareness. The minimap is your best friend in a MOBA. You need to master that. You need to be aware of what are the objectives, what is the actual priority, alright, and you will do fine with Dropship. The actual 50-second cooldown, I'm expecting a nerf on this one. I'm actually expecting a nerf on this, and the cooldown is too short. You can Dropship into a fight, okay? Do the team fight, win it. If you win it, you can actually drop ship after you're done, or maybe clear up a mercenary camp, or maybe go to a boss and so on. So I just believe that the cooldown is a little bit short on this one, a little bit too strong. And getting back to Stim Drone for a second, I do believe that the actual duration of the buff is a bit much at 10 seconds. I think something like 7 or 8 would be more balanced, but that's just my feelings on it. So anyway, I love the drop shit, I love playing around with it. Let's move on to level 13. Intensive Care. Now, I don't like this one from, well, it can work out, obviously it can. I don't like the 3-second part. You have to wait 3 seconds for Intensive Care to actually do 25% more extra healing, and I really do not like that part, the waiting part. Couples Therapy is usually the go-to talent from my point of view if the enemy team is not running double, triple mages, something like that. Intensive Care is the only way for you to get a little bit of healing off yourself, alright? And if there's no actual allied heroes around, keep in mind that you can put your healing beam on an actual minion. And since I'm actually on the subject, let me talk a little bit about lane clear. You don't have a lot of lane clear. The best way you can actually lane clear as Morales, there are two options. First, you gotta walk into the middle of the actual enemy minions and do a grenade. Okay, that's one, that's like the best thing you can do. And the other one, put your Q ability, your healing beam, on the minion that's taking the damage on your side, okay, on a friendly minion. You saw how these things go. Usually there's one minion that takes all the damage from the opposing minion, so on and so on. Keep that one alive and just slowly clear. But again, your wave clear as Morales is horrible, and you should never really be left alone. Morales is strong in the team, okay? Left alone, Morales is absolutely weak and should never be let to solo a lane, from my point of view, at least. So Couples Therapy, like I said, the only way to actually actively heal yourself with Morales, 25% of the healing from your Q ability, from your healing beam is something. It's not a lot, it's something. The extra mana cost by level 13 should be no issue at all. Preemptive Care, basic attacks against your healing beam target, reduce the attacker's speed by 25% for 2.5 seconds. Now, you're usually gonna have this one either on your tank or on your squishies, okay? You can never have it on yourself, obviously. It depends on who's attacking the target. If the enemy team again has got a lot of auto attack heroes, obviously this can be a good option, but you need some survivability yourself. You need a little bit of healing, and Couples Therapy can actually deliver that. How else you get healing? Through your actual trait. You need to stay out of combat, and since I'm on the subject, positioning is everything on Morales. You got no dash, no blink, no nothing. You cannot get out of harm's way if you're in it. Your grenade does help depending on how you talented, but again, it's hard to get away as a Morales. If you're caught, you're caught. So keep your positioning safe. Forget about your auto attacks. That's what it needs to stay safe. And well, that's pretty much it. You're gonna take some damage in a team fight, which Couples Therapy should help with that. Moving on to level 16. Let's see, Inoculation increases Safeguard's initial damage reduction by 50% for 1.5 seconds if you're fighting bursters. Okay, if you're fighting bursters, absolutely. Think about the buffs Terran they got now and how much play she will be getting. It wasn't bad enough that she was like banned at tournaments and it was super strong. They needed to buff. Okay, whatever. Against bursters, Inoculation. Okay, you're fighting bursters. Absolutely, Inoculation is gonna help a lot with that. Shield Sequencer is my favorite talent at this point. After casting Safeguard, you can cast it a second time within 3 seconds at no actual mana cost. Obviously, in a team fight, you want to get as many up as you possibly can. You're gonna get one yourself if you picked up the level 1 talent when you take damage below 50%, and you can cast 2 more with Shield Sequencer. Mitigate a ton of actual damage for your team. So it's definitely a strong talent. Is it a must-have? No, not necessarily. Again, with Morales, I feel that you actually have a bigger degree of choice than most other heroes. Moving on to System Shock. Displacement Grenade slows enemies by 50% for 4 seconds. The slow amount decays over its duration. It's gonna come down to whether you need it or not. How have team fights gone up until level 16? Was it all good? Were you able to stick to your target? Were your team able to keep getting kills on the important targets and so on and so forth? If yes, no need for System Shock. If no, need for System Shock, pretty much. Take into account, do you got melees, do you got range, do you actually need this? You should figure this one out by level 60. Second Opinion, I like this one. I mean, it's a fun talent. Reduces displacement grenade cooldown by 2 seconds, and it now holds a second charge. It's a fun talent. Okay, I love having 2 grenades knocking everybody from left to right and so on and so forth. Actually can knock somebody into an ult or into a bad position for them. It's cool, it's fun. But again, we gotta keep in mind that grenade is iffy. It's easy to dodge, it's easy to miss, and it's hard to actually control where it will explode in relevance to the actual enemy you're trying to hit to knock them a specific way. So I don't know about Second Opinion. Not my favorite talent at this tier. There are far better options from my point of view. And we hit level 20. Transfusion, I don't understand this one that much, to be honest. I understand the concept behind it. They want to pair you with an ally, okay? For example, you and Illidan, okay? Or you and Raynor, so on and so forth. You're gonna both of you move super fast, okay? Do a lot of damage and so on and so forth, and you can keep up with him and create this dynamic duo, and it looks super cool on screen and so on and so forth. I just do not believe this is a strong option. If I actually picked up at level 10, if I picked up the Stim Drone, I don't really go for Transfusion, more going to Storm Shield, if anything. The upgrade to Medivac, Medbay. Medivac heals nearby allies and everyone aboard for 100 health per second, actually 300 per second at level 20. It's a lot of heal, 300 a second. All nearby allies, minions as well. I actually saw it used in an actual push with an Asmodan. It just put the damn thing down, it was healing all the minions. Okay, it didn't teleport, it like travel like, I don't know, half a meter, something like that, really short, but the point was to get the healing. You can put it down in a team fight, but then again, you yourself are not active. Is it worth? I don't know. It can be put down when you think your team actually needs to get the hell out of dodge. Okay, you want to secure your team's escape or to go behind enemy lines and take your opponents by surprise. Okay, get healed up through that. Obviously, if you want to go to a boss and get full on health and so on and so forth, or one engage then go to another engage and so on and so forth. It's a good talent. I like it, it's strong. But if I actually picked up Medivac Dropship, I usually go for Storm Shield. I usually go for Storm Shield, as I see that the more reliant talent for what I'm supposed to do as an actual support, healer, medic slash whatever. And the final one I want to talk about, Caduceus Reactor 2.0. Restores mana, big deal. At level 20, unless the team fights don't drag out forever and ever, you're not gonna need this. Even if you didn't take mana talents, I never found myself running out of mana at level 20. Not even once, no matter how much I spam. So what is the point? Shield, okay, shields are cool. Awesome, more survivability. Again, you are squishy, you have no real escape. So the shields I definitely like, but it's just not worth. It's just not worth considering I can get Storm Shield and shield everybody. 45-second cooldown, not so bad either. So at this tier, my pick is usually Storm Shield. And well, that's about it, guys. That's gonna do it for the actual Morales build guide. I wanted also to give you the uncut version of my feelings on Morales. I have been having fun with her. I didn't expect it, to be honest. Again, I feel like she has a greater degree of choice than most heroes that we have right now. She will definitely be getting a lot of actual play, a lot of competitive play, impossible on certain maps like Sky Temple or Cursed Hollow. I see her as a must-have. I see her getting banned, I see her getting picked up, because again, you're saying, okay, she has no AoE healing. It doesn't matter, you can switch your beam, it's easy and quick. Just be careful where you stand, be careful about your position, and you'll be fine. So I'm betting we'll see a lot of Morales. I'm betting we'll see a little bit tweaks here and there to her abilities, most likely the medevac ultimate shortly, but yeah, I feel that she's extremely strong. So that brings me into the recommendation. I usually tell you guys, okay, this hero is okay, you can go for it, and this hero is not okay, and so on and so forth. I do believe that, especially if you're playing support, you must have Morales on your roster, simply because of the medevac, if nothing else. Other than that, I definitely recommend this hero to you. You should definitely pick it up. Is it a must-have? Yes, definitely. From my point of view, you got to have Morales. It's just that good. And well, that's gonna wrap it up, guys. Thank you for watching. Like, favorite, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed the content. And I'll definitely see you again soon.